Today, I'll be presenting on this particular topic, climate change and its impact on agriculture, a bioinformatics perspective. My name is Toluwase Ezekiah Fatoke. So these are the outline of this presentation today. So it will cover the objective, and then I will introduce you to climate, then the bioinformatics aspect of the climate change study, then how it links to the food security and how policies can be made in order to ensure that the climate change that we are experiencing today does not bring about even negative impact even on the sustainability of our livelihood. So what is the objective even of this particular presentation today? The aim of this presentation was to provide comprehensive understanding of all the multifaceted aspects of climate change as it's applied to agriculture system, and how bioinformatics could be leveraged in order to mitigate the impact of the climate change on food security. You know, many people, they talk about ozone is the one that is causing change in the climate. But you have to understand the levels or the layers of atmosphere. So if we talk about atmosphere consists of subunits that are classified according to the altitude and then the levels of the availability of oxygen that are present over there. So looking at the layers of atmosphere, so we can see the first layer that is very close even to the living organism here is called the troposphere. So, okay, that's where you have all the rainfall, everything over there. And you can see aeroplane also fly above the troposphere, okay, within the troposphere, there all the parachute and the rest like that. Then above that, you have the stratosphere, okay, you have the stratosphere. Okay, so between if you look at the figure on the right hand side, between the troposphere and the stratosphere, that's where we have the ozone layer. Okay, the ozone layer. So ozone layer is a little bit above the troposphere before you get to stratosphere. Okay, so that is where the ozone layer even confines. So anything above ozone layer, where you have the stratosphere, then we have the mesosphere, we have the thermosphere, and we have the exosphere. So exosphere, that's where we have the satellites. Okay, you say this particular country has not a particular satellite. So it is a layer where there is zero gravity. Okay, so whatever that you put there, it will be suspended over there. So that's where, if it said they launch a rocket, so that is where rocket gets to. Okay, so that is where the rocket gets through, and then they launch all the satellites that all the US and the China and every other country are launching even in the present time. So coming back even to the level of atmosphere, and you can see where the ozone layer is located, and we can see the green part of the atmosphere is called the troposphere. Okay, it's called the troposphere. So you can see in terms of the kilometer, so you can see even from here, troposphere is just between 0 to 18 kilometers above the sea level. The stratosphere is between 11 kilometer to 50 kilometer. Okay, stratosphere. Then we have the mesosphere, that is between 40 to 90 kilometer above the sea level. Then we have the thermosphere, between 80 to 800 kilometer, very hot, very hot. Then we have the one of exosphere, which is between 800 to 3,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers. So you can see all this, then you can now think about the climate change. What is really causing the climate change? Is it the depletion of the ozone layer that is making even the atmosphere or the troposphere to receive a lot of radiation from the other layers of the atmosphere? And how can the bioinformatics be used even to study what is going on in the troposphere in order to understand how to adapt to the climatic change. So if I want to introduce you to climate change first. So what is climate change? How can you describe climate change? Okay. So if we talk about anthropogenic climate change, that is the changes that you can find even on the troposphere here. Okay. So it has come to stay and it will continue to alter the environmental condition, which results in altering the biotic and abiotic stressors and impacts the crop yield. We all depend on crop. Crop is the primary producer. Plant is the primary producer. So whatever that will impact the crop will definitely impact human being and other organisms. So it will continue to have effect on the biotic and abiotic stressors, and then in large scale, with large scale distribution among the arable land, that is the land that is available for farming, and availability of fresh water for agricultural practices. So there is a complex relationship between the climate change and the crop production. Okay, with climate change will affect crop production. So that means the plant that make use of photosynthesis at a particular temperature. So excessive photosynthesis without bearing fruit will lead to what? Will lead to fertility. Will lead to fertility. So when photosynthesis exceeds productivity, then there will be what? There will be problem. So, and that is the problem that climate change is bringing even to us, even in these present circumstances. In this present circumstance, so we can see climate change is projected to decrease over crop productivity, to decrease overall crop productivity in the coming years, as I have said. So when photosynthesis exceeds productivity, then there will be problems. So when climate change is continuing to grow, continue to increase, then productivity of the crop will decrease, and we are experiencing it even in this present time. So climate change can alter disease dynamics and can cause biological invasion, leading to new challenges for farmers. Climate change has both direct and indirect impact on agricultural production system. So what this one means is that there are certain diseases that cannot survive as a result of climate change, increase in temperature and all the rest like that. But there will be another introduction of another kind of problem. That is, when a particular organism leaves its existing ecosystem in order to survive, then it will invade another place, another location, and that creates another problem that has not been recorded even before. So what are the direct and indirect impacts even of the climate change on the agricultural system? Number one, direct impacts include effects caused by modification of physical characteristics such as temperature level, rainfall distribution on specific agricultural production system. But indirect effects are those that affect the production through changes on the other species, such as pollinators, pests, disease vectors, and their invasive species. So these are much more difficult to assess due to high number of interaction parameters and links, of which are still not known. So indirect, we cannot quantify that because you cannot quantify every pest, whatever happens even within the ecosystem. You cannot quantify the pollinators, the level at which pollination occurs in plants. You cannot quantify that. But the direct one, which are the ones that serve as the basic yardstick, even for measurements, is the temperature and then the rainfall level. So if temperature increase excessively more than the previous year, you know that something has happened, and something will happen to the crop, and then all the organisms that depended on the crop. Then about the rainfall, the level of rainfall can be measured. Okay, the meteorological people can measure that. Okay, so if the level increase or drop, then you know that something is happening within the ecosystem. So climate change can impact the food security and nutrition in many ways, because most of which are exacerbated by underlying vulnerability. That is, this problem is become enormous. It's getting more noticed as a result of the impact that it has even on the organism. When an organism is unable to have adequate nutrients from the plants as a result of effect of climate change on the plants, then there's a problem. And the problem we exacerbate, that is, it will increase. It will become difficult because you cannot say you want to treat a kind of malnutrition when you don't know the source. If the source is the plant, then you have to go back to the root cause in order to tackle the problem. So the climate change indicators are as follows. We have the change in temperature, then we have the change in the amount of CO2 that is being released in the environment. Then we have the change in the level, sea level. Okay, if rainfall increases, then the sea level also will increase. And then we have the drought level, okay, and flood, storm, wildfire, landslide, extreme temperature. So we can see all these things are on increase, especially the wildfire. You can see on increase, storms, flood, all these things. So these are the quantitative measure that you can use to measure climate change and how it is being quantified, how it is being affecting even the environment. So according to the International Monetary Fund, in 2022, the climate change indicator to monitor climate change and its impact on population are presented in the figure that I have said. You can see there is increase from 1961 even to 2021. There is increase in temperature. Also from 2000 to 2022, there is increase in level of CO2. So if CO2 is available in excess, that means the rate of the photosynthetic rate will increase, but that doesn't correlate with productivity. So that is a problem. Then the changes in sea level also increases, even from 1990 even to 2020. Okay, 1990 to 2020. And also you can see increase in the storm, increase in the flood, increase in the landslide, increase in the landslide. So all these things are the yardstick, are the quantitative parameters of measuring changes in climate, as we have seen even in this figure. So the climate change. So according to the climate change portal, which provide the global data on historical and the future climate vulnerabilities and impacts with access to comprehensive global, regional, and country profile to gain deeper insight into climate risk and adaptation. Okay, so we can see here, so all these are the measures that all these organizations has put in place in order to monitor changes in the climate. So let's talk about the troposphere, where ozone layer is just above, and then how this troposphere ozone imparts even plant processes. If you talk about ozone, okay, ozone is oxygen in three states. Normal oxygen is O2, but here ozone is O3, okay, and as a result of that, when ozone release, then there will be kind of a pollution. Okay, the process of ozonolysis in chemistry, those that study organic chemistry. Okay, so tropospheric ozone is a damaging air pollutant. Okay, it will not give you a good oxygen. So we can see that it has significant impact even on the human and ecosystem Earth by forming a byproduct of the photochemical oxidation. That is, it will react with the nitrogen to form a kind of a nitroside in nitric oxide derivative. Okay, so we can see that this nitric oxide derivative NOx, in the presence of carbon monoxide, methane, and non-methane hydrocarbons. Okay, so all this in the presence of ozone will react with all this nitric oxide, and then it will form different kind of pollutants. So increase in the tropospheric oxygen ozone has increased from 1970 to 2011, and it has contributed enormously even to the green gas effect. Green gas, that is the production of CO2 and methane, CH4. So globally, it has been estimated that 0.7 million deaths per year are attributed to anthropogenic ozone pollution, according to this Answorth et al. 2012. Okay, so looking at the figure here, we can see the effect that this tropogenic ozone has even on the community. Okay, so the productivity will decrease, and then there will shift in composition of species and genotype. So this effect doesn't really just affect even the first degree, it affects the genetic composition of the species and genotype. What these plants, they want to adapt. Okay, as a result of adaptation, a lot of genetic changes will happen within the organism. Okay, so number 2, you can see the whole plant effect. Okay, the decrease in biomass, area per leaf also will decrease. Then reproductivity output also will decrease, while defense and senescence will increase. That is, the plant will want to survive, and then they want to what? They want to survive even harsh condition. They want to survive even the intruders, okay, of other organisms in order for them to live, and also maybe there are responses even to the availability of resources. Then the senescence, they want to conserve what they have in order for them to live long. Then in terms of the leaf effect, the photosynthesis as a result of increase in ozone will also drop. Then the starch metabolism will drop, sucrose will drop, respiration will drop, while foliage damage will increase, wax accumulation also will increase. So cellular effects, the robusco enzyme content and activity also will drop. That is the enzyme that is very important in the photosynthesis. Then the reactive oxygen species and scavenging capacity also will increase. That is a lot to fight even about the stresses that are playing even within the cell. So this reactive oxygen species will increase, and then the scavenging capacity also will increase in order to mitigate the stress. Then protein repair and turnover also will increase, while flavonoid biosynthesis, that is the secondary metabolite, the synthesis of secondary metabolites also will increase. Okay, so effect of elevated atmospheric carbon dioxide on plant processes. So the concentration of carbon dioxide, as we have seen in the previous figure, also has been increasing steadily with since 1959 even till 2020. Okay, so the current projection for the concentration has increased as much as about 500 to 1,000 parts per million by the year 2100, because we increase between 500 to 1,000 by the year 2100, according to IPCC report 2007. So how could this CO2 even affect even what is going on within the plant, within the agricultural system? So we can see that elevated CO2 levels will lead to changes in chemical composition of plants. Okay, CO2 is required for photosynthesis for plant to make carbohydrates, and then from carbohydrates it will turn it even to other things that is needed within the organism, within the plant. Okay, so we can see there will be higher rate of photosynthesis as a sort of high level of CO2. There will be increase in growth. There will be decrease in water use. It will lower tissue concentration of nitrogen and protein, and then it will decrease concentration of nutritionally important minerals, including calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. So the effect of elevated CO2 are not uniform, okay, due to the regional and the regional climatic variation. Okay, different regions of the world, they have different seasons. Some are divided into 3, summer, winter, fall, while some are just dry season and rainy season, sometimes summertime. So the effect of elevated CO2 are not uniform. Some species, particularly those that utilize C4 variant of the photosynthesis, show less of a response to elevated CO2 than do other types of plants. We have C3 and C4 plants. That is the plant that use carbon, 3-chain carbon to produce during the photosynthesis pathway, and then the one that use 4-carbon source during the photosynthesis pathway. So the study has shown that those that use C4 variants in the photosynthesis are less response to elevated CO2. That is, they are not affected by increase in the CO2. So this shows us that, okay, we need to cultivate more of C4 plants in order to mitigate changes in climate. So climate change and biological invasions. Okay, so as I have said at the beginning, that when there is increase in climate change, when climate change bring about changes in the environment. Okay, some diseases will die down. Okay, while there will be introduction of a new problem. So one of the new problem is the biological invasions. Okay, so biological invasion constitutes a major environmental changes driver affecting the conservation, agriculture, and human health. Invasive alien species (IS) impacts include alteration of the ecosystem features as hydrology, fire regimen, food webs, soil nutrients, and nutrient cycle. So this negative effect on the population, this has negative effect on the population and also facilitate further invasions and its associated impacts. Okay, when there is wildfire, so animal in that particular location will escape for their life, and then they go to another region. That region may not be their usual habitat. So as a result of that, they will affect and alter the ecosystem there and then create another problem within that ecosystem. So climate change enhances habitat disturbance, which facilitate the establishment of invasive species, and it provides opportunity for hybridization and introgression. So we can see there be disturbance within the ecosystem. So this effect will influence local biodiversity that can be tracked through genetic and genomic approach. That is where the bioinformatics starts taking effect. So if you want to study what is going on within the local environment, okay, then you study what is happening with at the genomic level within the biodiversity that is present in that particular environment. Okay, so looking at this particular publication, say adjusting the lens of invasion biology to focus on the impact of climate-driven range shift. Okay, so invasion biology, you have to what? You have to understand what is going on in order for you to understand the impact of the climate change. So, as I have said, bioinformatics is very essential even for us, even to understand the diversity that is going on even within the local environments of the organisms that are present there, of the organisms that are present in the local environment. So, if we talk about bioinformatics that can be applied even to agriculture and then to study the climate change. So, bioinformatics tools such as genomics, transcriptomics, and proteomics analysis play a crucial role in investigating climate-induced changes in crop phenotypes, and then they identify potential resilience mechanism. So genomics, that is, want to study, okay, what are the absolute total gene content even of that particular organism. Okay, by the time you compare it from one environment to another environment, or from one climatic year to another climatic year, maybe you consider it, okay, 5 years ago, and then you do the same genomic study again even 10 years later. So any variation within the two, within the same environment, you can measure, okay, something has happened within that environment that has altered the survival mechanism or the adaptation mechanism of that particular organism. Then transcriptomics, you measure the total RNA content within that organism from one period of time against another period of time. Then proteomics, that is the total protein content present in that organism in that particular region at a particular year, you compare with another particular year. So by that, when you see differences, then you can know that something has happened within that ecosystem. So by leveraging on bioinformatics approach, the genomic data of pathogen and host could be analyzed to better understand the disease transmission and develop effective strategies for disease management. Okay, so by we're able to pinpoint, okay, what are the genes or the RNAs that are varied within these two or more data sets, and then you're able to understand, okay, what are the diseases, what are the problems, or what are the good things that are associated with these changes. So bioinformatics help us even to deciphering the molecular mechanism underlying the genetic adaptation in crops to withstand changes in environmental conditions and enable scientists to develop climate resilient crop variety that can thrive in challenging conditions. So when you understand that, okay, you can now think, okay, how can I make this organism more suitable to this climate condition? Okay, is it okay to increase the genes that be able to adapt to increase in temperature? Is it to modify the genes that will increase water retention? Is it to increase the genes that are responsible to reproductive rate? That is, the plants can be able to reproduce in shorter cycle than the usual. So all these things are the manipulation that you can study from the bioinformatics perspective. And there is need for collaboration between the climate scientists, agronomists, and then the bioinformatics scientists. So bioinformatics from agricultural perspective. So agricultural bioinformatics addresses agricultural problems directly. That is, the aspect of bioinformatics that focuses even on agriculture. So genomic resources have created the means to speed up the improvement in crops from the agronomic, horticultural, and then forestry species. So in silico biology provides an opportunity to study plant pathogen interaction in order to enable disease diagnosis, management, and cultivations of disease-resistant transgenic crop. So this particular publication from Springer, Agricultural Bioinformatics, is highly recommended. So bioinformatics from genomics to phenome, that is, from the gene content to the physical appearance even of the organism, the phenomics, that is, the traits that you can see in that particular organism. So we can see the omics level there, that we have to what? We have to understand all these stages in order to bring about changes in the plant or the organism. So predicting the responses of species to climate change therefore require the description of the genomic architecture. So from the genome to the transcriptome to the proteome, which is referred to as the central dogma. Then from the proteome will determine or define the metabolomes, because at the level of proteome, that's where you have enzymes. Okay, so the enzymes are the catalysts that convert one particular compound within the body to another product. Okay, and that process is called the metabolome. That is, we want to study the total content of the metabolites that are present in our organism at a specific point in time. So the kind of metabolites that are present will determine the physical traits of that particular organism, which is the phenome. Okay. So looking at the two major approaches that we can use to determine genomic architecture of an organism. Number one is the genome phenotype association. So sometimes it is being referred to as GWAS, genome-wide association mapping study, which have shown that the genomic architecture associated with phenotype traits potentially relate to the climate adaptation, such as thermal sensitivity, salinity, and the stress level. Salinity, that is about the salt adaptation to the salt and the changes in pH. Then the second approach is the ecology genotype association, GEA, ecology genotype association, genome environment association. So this approach can scan genome, and then it's being performed to identify significant association between the genetic polymorphism and then the environmental variables. So these techniques involve understanding sequencing, DNA sequencing, RNA sequencing. So these are the techniques that you can use to understand, okay, the composition of the DNA within an organism or the composition of RNA within an organism. Then for the proteomics, you must understand the microarray analysis. Okay, microarray analysis. So that one can be used even to understand okay, the total protein that are present even within an organism, or sometimes the total metabolites that are present within an organism. Okay, so these are the analysis that can be used to quantify the level of protein, the level of RNA or DNA, or the metabolites that are present within an organism in correlation with what is going on within the environment. So by the time you consider the environmental parameters, and you compare with the genomic parameters or the genomic output, then you'll be able to correlate what are the effects of the environment at the molecular level in that particular organism. So ecology plus bioinformatics is equals to ecoinformatics. So ecoinformatics has been referred previously as biodiversity informatics. It's a branch of science that produces new learning through creative approach for finding, monitoring, analyzing, predicting, and storing biological, environmental, and economic information. So the global climate change has led to severe environmental changes and many species loses their habitat. So prediction of how biodiversity responds to global climate change are fundamental to urgent need of strategies for ecosystem management, conservation in order to counteract the imminent loss of biodiversity and ecosystem functioning and services. So we can see, so this is a whole integrated process where the genomic data can be linked to the phenotypic data and can be linked to ecological data. As a result of that, modeling and predictions could be made in order to assess the risk and in order to provide alternative means of adaptation, and then able to provide strategy by which sustainable practices can be implemented in terms of the ecosystem management and the conservation. Okay, so mainstream and integrated database for agricultural research in terms of bioinformatics, the number one essential database is NCBI. Okay, so this NCBI consists of bioinformatics resources in terms of gene. If you use a gene bank, then we have BLAST, which is a basic local alignment sequence tool. Okay, so this particular BLAST can be used to work for you to compare and then to align one sequence to the other. Okay, so what are the variations between these two, what are the similarities or difference between these two sequences from the same organism. Then you can use this particular BLAST, basic local alignment search tool. Then we have PubMed, which is the publications in terms of that's related to medicine, and there's some also related to agricultural medicine. Okay, so in terms of Assemble, so this one consists of genomes both from human and plants and other organisms. While UniProt database is basically for protein sequence information. You want to understand anything about protein in terms of their sequence, though somehow they curated even the structure also. So you can use a UniProt database. The Swiss Espacy database is also a bioinformatics resource for protein analysis. Then the European Bioinformatics Institute database, ebi.ac.uk, is also bioinformatics resources for protein, DNA or RNA. Then protein data bank is for protein structure. Then if you want to study metabolic pathways, then you will use a KIG database, Kyoto Encyclopedia of Gene and Genomes. So there are also some specialized databases that are specific on a certain plant. We have an integrated breeding platform. You want to understand the breeding approach from the bioinformatics, then you use this particular platform. Then we have some database that are basically meant for a particular plant. So this particular Triticep toolbox is a specialized database with information system database, rice informatics database, Solanase genomic network for tomato, eggplant, etc. Then we have some other database that are specifically meant for plant sequence, www.plantgdatabase.org. And then there are some other useful database for worm. So worm base, anything you want to study about worms, artworm, tapeworm, or the rest like that. Then phytopart also talks about different database and the database that are particular to plant diseases. So collaboration and expert policy is very, very important. It's very, very important in order to provide strategy by which sustainable practices can be implemented in agriculture in order to counteract the effect of the climate change. Okay. So it's a kind of a holistic approach that has to be put in place from science even to the society. Everything has to be integrated together in order to foster means and approach of ensuring sustainable agricultural practice and then sustainable environmental and economic outcome. So from the Africa perspective, Africa Biogenome Project is engaging even a series of scientific approach in order to study the genomic content even of plant and organism from the African source. Then the report of IPC and the IPBES also they provide informations and the responses to biodiversity of biodiversity to climate change is a very important policy document. Then looking at even the Canada, so this particular country, they have a strategic approach to climate change and environment. So they have their policy even from 2024 to 2029, which after that will be reviewed again in order to meet the current challenge of the climate. So in order to ensure food security in a climate change, so we can see that the major impacts of the climate change is the food security. Food security, as I have said, once photosynthesis is affected, then the food chain will be affected. Then a lot of things will happen within the ecosystems in terms of disease, invasion, and every other things that happen that we can see. So climate change and additional about 3 billion mouths to feed by 2050 raise serious concern over global food security. Yes, the current population of the world about 8 billion as at present. Then by 2050, maybe will have become like 11 billion. So this increase in population and then the effect of the climate change have a huge impact even on the food security. So efforts has to be put in place in order for us even to work, in order to overcome this harsh reality. So food security exists when all the people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. That is food security. But we are yet even to reach this particular state because some regions of the world doesn't have some of these essential requirements to say that they have food security. So this definition gives rise to 4 dimensions of food security. Number 1 is availability of food. Is the food available? So if the food is available, how is the accessibility economically and physically? Does the people have the power required even to access the food in terms of the economic and then the physical health, in terms of health? Then number 3, utilization. The way it is being used and assimilated by the human body, does it provide nutrition? So it's one thing for the food to be available, it's another thing for you to have access, it's another thing for you to want to benefit you. If it doesn't have the essential required ingredients or nutritional required parameters, then it doesn't provide you with the essential thing that your body is in need of. So that is not yet food security. The another thing is stability. Okay, does this availability, accessibility, and utilization, is it stable, or is something that you have even today, and then after 1 month there is scarcity again before you wait for another 3 months for it to be available? So the stability of all these 3 processes, availability, accessibility, and utilization, so all these things working together ensure what is called food security. So this is challenging because one dimension of this 4 is being lacking in in one or more regions of the world. Okay, so we cannot say globally now that we are food secure. So impact of the climate change and then increase in population poses a great impact even on the sustainability of our world. So food security and bioinformatics. So in order to improve food security, in order to improve availability of food, then more crops has to be produced, and the rate at which their productivity has to be increased. Okay, so we can see that there are a lot of effort that is being done even by the international bodies in order to ensure that crops are available, crops that have the essential nutrients, and crops that can adapt even to the changes even in the climate. So from the biological perspective, so bioinformatics has been used even or is being used even to study ways of improving this crop in order for them to survive and in order for them to provide essential nutrients for the populace. So application of novel machine learning algorithm is being used to harness even the repository of the genomics and phenomics data effectively in order to characterize biological traits and pathway. Okay, all these big data are available, but we have to make sense of the available sequencing data in order to have a holistic approach to how and what we can integrate together to make even all these plants even adaptive, and in order for us even to have good food even available at every time. So a new design even for the wheat is ongoing. If you follow this particular research, also we want to design wheat that are adaptable. Then this plant phenotype experiment also is being carried on. The International Plant Phenotypic Network, their network that try to study the phenotypes of different plants and how it could be improved. So in order to preserve and to conserve even crop even from extinction, so Svalbard Global Seed Vault in the Netherlands is being put together in order to ensure world food supply, securing millions of seed representing every important crop plant available in the world today, and offering options for future generations to overcome the challenges of climate change and population growth. So this Svalbard Global Seed Fund has stored more than 1.2 million seed samples from almost every country in the world out of the total storage capacity of 4.5 million in the Netherlands. So you can see that the seeds are stored under the black box condition according to FAO's gene bank standards at the working condition of -18, low moisture level that ensure low metabolic activity and keeping the seed viable for a long period of time. So all the plant cannot go into extinction, so we can recultivate them, we can improve them by the time there is need even for that. So in conclusion, so we can see that bioinformatics, when combined with genomics, has the potential to help maintain food security in the face of climate change through the accelerated production of climate-ready crops. So safeguarding crops in a challenging climate environment requires bioinformatics advances in harnessing data from vast phenotype and genomic datasets to translate research findings into climate-smart crops in the field. So there's a call even to you, even to engage in the research, in the study of plants and organisms in direct correlation even with the changes in the climate, So we have to understand that agricultural bioinformatics is very essential, and that is one of the field where we can engage in order to understand what is going on in terms of the climatic change and how we can mitigate the food scarcity in order to ensure food security and then sustainable agricultural practices. So these are the references that were used even in this particular seminar in case you want to study more about them. So these are more of the references. Okay, so that is what I have for you even today. Thank you. I am Toluwase Ezekiah Fatoki. Bye.